Great Britain. Make Britain great again. Let's make Britain great again. This formerly great British Empire that encompassed much of the world. Not Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Uganda, Kenya, etc., etc., Australia, India, New Zealand, etc. And I can say this as an Englishman, born in England, my dad English, his relatives have been Irish, coming over to build the railways, living in Wales, the Creegans. His dad was supposedly a Welsh farmer. He was born illegitimately. And my mother being Swedish, and her mother being American, and her descendants being from Scotland. So I can say this is a truly British man. Now we know that much of the great British Empire was by bloodshed and oppression, which we know was wrong. But also, the British Empire brought the gospel of Jesus Christ. The Red Cross, the St. George's Cross, symbolizes Jesus Christ. I know the Union Jack. And what made Britain truly great, we have to remember, was the Christian values. Living right morally, these basic ones. Holy matrimony. Man and woman united in marriage and not having sex out of marriage. I know we've gone far from that. I did many times before I became a Christian. Integrity. The old value of not lying, having integrity, what Britain used to be known for. We have turned so far from that sin of lying, especially BBC. BBC used to be fully trustworthy. Now we know it's lying. And we see the news channels, Sky News, Channel 4. One example of this is what we saw with the march. I went to the march a couple of years, Unite the Kingdom. When they were calling it on the news, they were calling it an anti-immigrant march. It wasn't. It was a Unite the Kingdom. It's standing against wrong things. Nothing to do with them. It wasn't an anti-immigrant march, but that's a lying news. And I get an example of them lying about the numbers. Say there was 150,000 when we know that there could have been 1 million there. We've seen the video footage. And we know if there wasn't 1 million, there was over 500, 600,000. But again, the lies. Remember, we see the other things that we're standing up for. People telling the truth about the grooming gangs that's been going on, and then cover-ups of this, and then the 3 girls that were murdered and somebody was put in a prison for a treat. That was part of the thing that we were standing up for. You remember, it was Christian Britons who fought to abolish slavery. And some of that is still going on in the Islamic world. Go to Libya, go to Saudi Arabia, you can find the slavery is still going on. People are still being tricked and trafficked. So go to Libya, we'll find out the slavery is still going on. But remember, it was Christians that opened the schools. Christians that opened the orphanages. Christians that opened the hospitals. Christians that formed the many charities. Yes, we know that many of these charities and now become money-making building. Again, that sin of lying and fraudster. We remember the Live Aid. It was the Christian values, people in this country that raised ready money. And where is all this money gone? And we're all waking up to the fraudulent that's going on in charities. Charity came from the word, in the old King James, for love, it used to be charity. But now we know those charities have been corrupt. But our foundations are Christianity. King Jesus. Look at the flag. Look at the flag that I made here, carried to the march. With the British flag, the English flag, our flag. And look at it. Look at the first bit. The first bit in here represents, I wrote with the cross represents Jesus Christ, the Jewish man who died to save all nations. Remember, that's what the cross represents. On the Union Jack and on the English flag. The cross represents Jesus Christ, the Jewish Israeli man who died to save all nations. He died first of all to save the Jews, but then he died for all nations. That's why when he was died and resurrected, he told his followers, Matthew 28:18-20, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me, said Jesus. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations. So he died for all nations. And remember, we need to remember this. Eden had boundaries. When Adam and Eve disobeyed God after being deceived by our real enemy, the devil, they were kicked out of the garden. You have to remember another thing. You cannot enter heaven illegally. We cannot enter heaven with sin. We can't enter heaven with any kind of sin, what the Bible tells us, right and wrong. And we have to remember, lying is illegal. And we see this on the news again and again. Judgment's going to come back, all the lying that's going on about people, the slander of people. We have to remember, Father God has holy laws. And, and the first law of that, that is love. Somebody came up to Jesus and said, of all the commandments, which one is the greatest? Jesus said this, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. The first law is love Father God, who is our daddy, who is our father. And the second is love others as you love yourself. That's what Jesus taught. That's the basic love. And that's what we need to remember. Love. Love is the main thing. You need to remember something. If we don't want Father God and Jesus, we have to if we truly want to make Britain great again, we have to go back to Jesus Christ, the old values, following him and reading the Bible, reading the Holy Bible, and not just reading it and doing what it says. His integrity, following Jesus, his integrity, his holy religion, hard work, sexual purity. And now, with ourselves and with others. Remember, one of the things we have on the TV now, we have men dancing with men. We have things that we're teaching our kids about sexuality. If we don't want Father God and Jesus Christ, his son, his sacrifice of love and forgiveness, then other religions will take over and rule over our land. And what is happening to our land? We're complaining about it, but we've turned away from God. Remember, Britain since 1950s is now also represented by Africans, West Indians, Asians, Indian, Pakistan, Sikhs, Hindus, Muslims. We are all British. You need to unite in what is right. My wife is from Ghana. My ex-wife, St. Lucian. Most of my best friends are black and thingy. I've got Cockney cousins. My cousins, a Cockney woman was married to a Guyanan Asian man. They had stalls on Petticoat Lane, sending all the Cockney, the London souvenirs. John and Steve Lupus, real British Cockneys. Remember, Britain is reggae, rock and roll, two-tone music. Why? Because we have different colour races in this country, in this land. Funk, Motown, heavy rock. We had that recent guy that Birmingham died. Remember, it's curry houses, it's kebab house. That's part of our culture. Fish and chips is our breakthrough. But we need to unite. We need to unite under the core values of Jesus Christ. Love. If we truly are Christians, we need to come back to the Union Jack. But if we're Christians, we need to turn and follow Jesus. We need to come back to the old values. Do we even know what the Bible teaches? When's the last time you read the Bible? I went on the Unite, the Kingdom March. Millions of people were there, and there were many, many Christians there. But remember, if we want to make this country truly great again, we have to come back to Jesus. We have to come back to carrying that cross. And we have to, if we have racism towards other religions, racism towards other colours, whether you're black or white. One thing I was disappointed about is where were my black friends, my old black mates? Where were you, Kaz Pennon, at the march? Kaz Pennon, who's one of the ICF leaders, was a former football hooligan. I myself was a former football hooligan, involved in Oxford United, involved in West Ham United, follow along as a wannabe at the ICF. But we need to come back to the cross. We need to truly, for Britain to become great again, we need to lift up the cross and live right. We need to live in integrity. Boris Johnson came out of his thing. Why did he lose his position as a Prime Minister? Because of lying. We need to come back. Yes, we know that he was already adulterous, but we need to come back to Jesus Christ. We need to come back to following the Bible, the old school ways, following Jesus, following God, and then Britain truly will become great again. Let's make Britain great again. God bless.